Welcome back, and you're still watching Financial Markets, and my name is Anthony Sebale, your host for this program. And this show is hosted here on Smart 24 TV every single weekday from Monday to Friday at exactly 10:30 to 12:30 p.m. We bring you latest information on the performances of our financial markets. In particular, we're interested in the stock markets and the debt markets of East Africa and the continent as well as the globe. And we bring you the latest information with a few triggers here and there that can give you an insight into which companies you can invest in and how you can get your investment journey started. Of course, you can find us on Twitter at Smart24TV as well as on Facebook at Smart24TV Official. And we get a little chat, and there definitely will answer questions regarding your concerns as well. Now, yesterday on Tuesday, of course, the stock market was quite red, slightly red, I have to say, not extremely red, like blood red, but we still had a little loss on our all-share index, like I mentioned, after pairing about 0.68 points. However, the companies that led were Centum, led by Centum Investments, who came in as the first gainer there on the stock exchange. Now, Centum is cross-listed from Nairobi and has been listed on the Uganda Stock Exchange since 2011. And currently, they tend to trade actually on the ticker symbol of CENT, or rather CENT. Now, this company has a total market capitalization, and for starters, market capitalization is the total value of shares, the total monetary value of shares. That is, we get the number of shares outstanding for this particular company and multiply that number by the current share price of that stock. Now, doing that, we have over 189 billion Ugandan shillings worth of shares listed on the stock exchange for Centum Investments Company. And this market capitalization represents close to 0.9% of the entire Uganda Stock Exchange. Remember, the stock exchange has a total market capitalization of close to 21.9 trillion shillings at the moment. And so Centum takes close to over 0.9%, just below 1% of that equity market there on the Uganda Stock Exchange. And based on this calculation, of course, when we weigh all the companies, the 18 companies, by market capitalization, out of the 18 companies, Centum Investments comes in the 13th position amongst the most valuable companies. Now, the company yesterday increased by 6.05 Ugandan shillings, and this was a 2.18% price appreciation for the day, closing the day with a price of 283.76 Ugandan shillings. Now, interestingly, they didn't have any volumes that were traded on the stock market. And I've mentioned this on the show, but we must understand something here. Prices are determined by demand and supply, but not entirely. For starters, when you have a stock at a given price, that price is not determined by the exchange. It's rather determined by the last deal that was made on the stock exchange on that company. So let's say, for example, Centum had a price. I'm just using a hypothetical figure for purposes of demonstration. If Centum ended the day with a price of 300 shillings, let's say, and on that day, it traded about 1,000 shares. Of course, these shares could have been bought or sold by one person, or we could have had different units being sold out to different people or individuals. Now, the closing price is kind of like the price at which the last deal was transacted on the stock exchange on that particular stock. So if our company, like we said, Centum, closed at 300 shillings, it means the last deal on that day was transacted at 300 shillings. Now, why do we talk about a stock price and yet still talk about a closing deal? Well, the stock prices are put in place by, of course, at the end of the day trading, and of course it opens the next day of trading at that particular price, and it keeps on changing depending on how much people are willing to buy that particular stock and also sell at a particular price. So in the morning, of course, as a stockbroker, you have deals coming in, you have people, bids rather, coming in, and when you talk about the bids, we are talking about people who want to buy shares. So I have my account as Anthony, and I want to buy Centum stock shares. Now, I go to my stockbroker, let's say I'm just using an example for demonstration, SBG. So I go to SBG officers and I say, hey, I need 1,000 shares from MTN. They tell me, oh, okay. Now, at MTN, the last closing price was 185 Ugandan shillings. Now, if that is the price, the exchange put a 15% plus or minus window. So you have 15% room for you to either buy or sell. So when you get 15% of, for example, let's say 100 shillings, that's about 15 shillings. And so if a stock price is at 100 shillings, you have actually the right to be able to buy or sell at prices between, let's say, 85, that is 15 shillings below 100, or 115, that is 15 shillings above 100 shillings. So you have that 15% window through which you can transact. And of course, we all know what the market looks like. In our normal markets, we know that the buyers are always looking for the least price. They're looking for the person who is selling at the least price. So as a buyer, you're going to put in a bid in most cases at a lower price, right? And then as a seller, so if I own shares in Centum and I want to sell these shares, I have to go to my stockbroker and put in what I call an ask. And I say, I want to sell 1,000 shares at this particular price. You still have to be within the 15, plus 15 or minus 15% window of that price. Now, when these two, of course, in the morning, our markets open at 9 a.m. and they close at 1 p.m. Now, when these two, of course, come in the morning, the bidders, the asks, and also all this, the stockbroker, they come together at exactly 9 a.m. and align the bids and the asks and say, okay, these are the people who are want to sell at this price, and these are the people who are willing to buy at this price. Now, if any of the two parties agree in terms of pricing, in other words, if somebody wanted to buy at 115 shillings and there is someone willing to sell and already has accepted to sell at 115 shillings, they will have a deal. Now, this deal is now going to become the stock price. If at all the day ends and no other transaction has taken place, then definitely this last deal that was made is going to be the closing price for the stock. And this is the stock price we look at the stock market performance. I hope I gave you a clearer picture. You can give me a comment in the sections below, of course, to see where you might not have understood. But simply that's how the stock market prices are determined based on the demand of a stock and the supply. In other words, how much people are willing to sell and how much people are willing to buy a particular stock. If people feel like this stock has to come down, definitely they will bring it down by trading at a lower price. If they feel it has to go higher, they will definitely move it in that direction by being able to buy and sell at a higher price. And so this is what usually, under normal circumstances, this is what happens. However, we have cross-listed companies like Centum, we have KCB, Kenya Airways, and so on. These companies are listed on two exchanges. For example, the Nairobi Stock Exchange and the Kenyan and the Uganda Stock Exchange. Now, when this happens, of course, there are other dynamics that come in here because we have an exchange rate. These companies are listed on the Nairobi Stock Exchange, and their prices are in terms of Kenyan shillings, and then here in Uganda they're in terms of Ugandan shillings. So we have to bring in the factor of the exchange rate. The moment the currency exchange rates change, definitely the prices also change. And then sometimes at the end of the day, when the prices don't agree, then the exchange has to kind of reconcile and have the prices at least within a certain limit. Of course, they might not be exactly the same, but they should be at least within a specific limit. And that's how cross-listed companies have their stocks or their stock prices move. Not many times do we have much activity on cross-listed companies here on the Uganda Stock Exchange, but regardless, their prices are determined by other factors outside the demand and supply. Factors like the foreign exchange rate, factors like the demand and supply of these stocks on the domestic equities or equity markets where they are listed. Now, this was the case for Centum. Centum had no trades on Tuesday. There was no gross turnover, but rather they had about price movement of close to 6.05 shillings and closing the day with a price of 283.76 Ugandan shillings per share, a 2.18% price appreciation for the day trades there. And now the shares outstanding, currently Centum has 665 million shares that are floated on the Uganda Stock Exchange, and they are valued at 189 billion Ugandan shillings, which represents close to 1% of the entire equity market of the Uganda Stock Exchange. Now, Centum, yes, performed well on Tuesday, but Centum hasn't been performing well based on the longer term, calculations. For example, based on the 1 month performance, the company has lost 1.66% in 4 weeks. That is, 1 month, and then in about 1 week, the company has lost 1.1%, and in 9 months, in 3 months rather, the company has lost 9.99%, almost 10%. Then in year-to-date performance, comparing the stock price on the 1st of January to the current stock price, the company began the year with a price of 444.82 Ugandan shillings per share and has since then lost 36.2% of their price valuation, ranking them the 15th on the Uganda Stock Exchange in terms of year-to-date performance. So it is still not as attractive a stock as I could of course have advised. The company still, in terms of trading, is the 8th most traded on stock currently on the Uganda Stock Exchange within the last 3 months, and that is looking from the 12th of July to the 11th of October 2022. That was yesterday. The company within this period has traded close to about 31.6 million Ugandan shillings worth of shares, and these shares are about 109,000 shares that we are talking about here that have been transacted on Centum. Now, they reached a volume high of just 100,000, which was achieved on the 19th of July within the same period. They have had trade on the 11th of August. That was their last day of trading. They had trade on the 8th of August, on the 19th of July. They had trade on the 20th of June, and a trade on the 7th of March, on the 7th of April, and so on. So a little bit scattered trading there. But I have to point out, compared to many other cross-listed companies, I think Centum is a little bit more active, and we might have to give it, of course, some attention, at least compared to other, Nairobi Stock Exchange cross-listings that are on the Uganda Stock Exchange. So we can still give it some credit for the activity, at least it has put up, and we can say it's at zero or entirely something we have to do away with, but we can say that, of course, the company is promising, and you can choose to invest in the company here on the stock exchange, or you can go on the Nairobi Stock Exchange as well, where it's doing quite well, I have to say, much better than it is here on the Uganda Stock Exchange. That is Centum Investment Company for you. He was the top gainer there yesterday, closing the day after that 2.18% gain on its stock price. Now let's look at KCB Group. KCB Group was the second most top gainer. KCB is a subsidiary of KCB Group Holdings. Of course, it has a subsidiary here in Uganda that operates, as a financial institution, a well-established financial institution. Currently, the bank runs several ATMs, of course, and several branches around the country. And in East Africa, they still have a very good share of the market. Recently, the company had a change of leadership from Mr. Joshua Oigara to Mr. Russo Paul, who now is the current CEO of the company. And Mr. Joshua Oigara achieved quite a lump sum of staff, getting to increase the assets for the bank, getting to have the bank acquire certain other subsidiaries, and so on and so forth. So the company is still one of the most highly priced banks or financial institution in East Africa. It got listed on the stock exchange in 2010, and that was on the 19th of October 2010, and currently is trading under the ticker symbol KCB on the Uganda Stock Exchange. The company has a market capitalization of close to 3.74 trillion Ugandan shillings worth of shares, and this represents about 17.8% of the entire Uganda Stock Exchange, almost a quarter of the exchange. And currently it is the third most valuable, coming just behind Equity and as well as Wumeme. Rather, it's Equity, and Equity is the most valuable, of course, and MTN coming behind Equity and MTN Uganda. Those are the two topmost, and KCB coming in the third most valuable company position. Now, yesterday the company gained close to 7.91 shillings on their stock price, and this was a 0.63% increase in the stock price for the company, closing the day with 1,254.13 Ugandan shillings. There were no traded volumes, no gross turnover. The market movement was entirely based on other factors. But the shares outstanding currently are 2.94 billion shares and valued at 3.74 trillion. Still, the company has and enjoys a very good share of our market here on the Uganda Stock Exchange. In terms of long-term performance, this year the company remains in the red, if I can say, and add in the blood red. Looking at their 1 week performance, they have lost close to 4.88%. And so this daily increase shouldn't excite you that much yet. The company also in 4 weeks have lost 6.83% on their price. And in 3 months, they have lost 7.31% of their price valuation. And in year to date, they began the year, let's see, the company began the year with 1,414.32 Ugandan shillings as their opening price. And currently at 1,200, they have lost close to 11.3% on their year to date performance. And so shareholders should be compoundly worried because the company has also lost 7% on their monthly performance. Still not a good performance from KCB on the stock market. But when I say not good performance, there's some people who actually mistake this for the companies not doing well. Well, this has got nothing to do with how KCB is running. KCB is running so well. But on the stock exchange, things are different. We base your performance on your price. Because this is a market capitalization weighted index, kind of stock exchange. And so we must have a price that is favorable. We must have an appreciation of price to add value to the shareholders there. The company last had trades on the 11th of August last year, and these were closing with the price of 1,503 after about 296 shares were transacted on the company there. That is KCB Group for you there on the stock exchange here in Uganda. Away from that, on the losing side, East African Breweries, like I said, came in the last position, unfortunately, after being a gainer for some time, at least on the stock market here in Uganda. And still, there's more to lose than to gain still on East African Breweries, which is one of the oldest companies that is listed on the Uganda Stock Exchange. Matter of fact, it was the first cross-listing on the exchange here in the year 2001. But currently registering a poor performance on the stock exchange. And in summary, we had close to 200,862 shares that were traded on the Uganda Stock Exchange, corresponding to a value of close to 12,769,020 shillings that was transacted on the stock market here in Uganda. And currently, the market capitalization of the Uganda Stock Exchange is 21.0 trillion Ugandan shillings at the moment. There you have it, ladies and gentlemen. That is the Uganda Stock Exchange market performance for you. And like I mentioned, if you want to be part of this action, the Uganda Securities Exchange is available to help you. First of all, you must open an account, and this account will help you, of course, keep track of your stock and how you're transacting. Simply dialing *165 *57 hash using your MTN, you will be able to open an account. You can also visit Uganda Securities Exchange at www.use.org.ug for more information on how you can start trading on the stock exchange. We are going to take another quick breather, the last one of its kind, and we return with Nairobi Stock Exchange. How did things go for Nairobi there, and what should we expect? We'll be right back. Stay with us. You're watching Smart 24. Ooh.